Hey, I'm Kristen.
And I'm Mike.
And this is
The Business Family.
You're listening to episode 11 of The Business Family. This is part 2 of our interview with LaForge Family Vineyard, and I definitely recommend going back and checking it out. But as a short recap, we talked about how the vineyard came to be and the hurdles of starting a small business in the food and beverage industry. Today, you'll hear about how Charis and Kevin leaned into their community in order to market themselves, how to do market research, and the super cool story of how they got their product in a local grocery store. So let's jump on in.
Please talk about the labeling work.
Oh, sure. So so this is the other thing. So my background is in art. I have an art degree that was up until now kind of useless, I guess. Useless for job purposes. Sure. So this was my chance to kind of get back into it and in more of a directed way, where I actually had a little bit of pressure
to complete something.
Yeah. And so I got into design. So I do all the label designs,
which is that's beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
I love it, and Thanks. I love the dragon one.
Thanks.
It's so cool.
Yeah. And I redesigned the lemon one too, because that was the first label I designed before I really honed in on my style. Mm-hmm. It's literally just a picture of lemons on a table next to a glass of the wine, which is fine. But I started doing more of like fine art meets design. The medium I've been working with is pen and colored pencil for cool. All the other designs. So the black raspberry wine is a dragon. Decided to do a mythical creature theme for all of our fruit wines. So the lemon wine is going to be a unicorn.
Oh, cool.
And then if we do other fruit wines, yes. Yeah,
they're doing like a mythical creature theme.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. So as we kind of expand our fruit wines, we'll get, there'll be different mythical creatures. And then the grape wines will be more of that calligraphy kind of, whimsical script look. So that's been a learning experience for me too, like learning how to effectively market a product and how to
talk to me about that, because I'm so interested, because I'm like, okay, you sold out of your black raspberry wine, so people know who you are.
Yes,
they're finding you. How
the
heck are they finding you?
Is this just community members?
48 friends.
So a lot of this, like, I can't even take credit for. I don't have a marketing background. So I've been learning all of this just as I go, which is a little scary.
Thoughts?
Yes,
so we're
delicious.
Drinking the lemonade wine.
It's delicious. It's so refreshing. It's crisp. It's tart. It's sweet. Not too sweet. It's sweet though. Definitely sweet.
Yeah, it'll get you all happy. What more can you ask for?
It basically tastes just like it sounds.
Yeah,
when people ask me what it is, I'm like, well, it's like lemonade with alcohol.
We don't grow the lemons on the property, in case you're aware. Citrus does not grow in Illinois.
You don't have hybrid lemons here?
No, I'm afraid not.
I wonder if those actually exist.
Probably
can we just, I want to hear more about marketing and stuff, but since we just brought this out, lemonade wine, that's a new one. Like, I've never heard of that, So you squeeze lemons, you put a yeast in it, and just ferment?
So literally, this is exactly what it says on the label. It is, I make lemonade, and then I ferment it. And there's a certain process, so that way it'll survive.
Oh my gosh!
Because yeast has trouble surviving in lemon juice.
Another bee.
But there's a certain, this is sweeter.
It's 12.5% alcohol,
yes.
everyone.
So I like to actually cut it with...
Drinks like you could
like
chug the bottle, folks.
So I'm a lightweight, and I like to cut it 50-50 with like seltzer water or something like that. Because,
Because yes, this will make
I didn't eat lunch before this, so we'll see how I'm doing by the end of the day.
Mike's driving, right?
Actually, I'm heading to the city, so
maybe I will stay for dinner.
That was the plan.
Get them drunk so they can't drive home.
Oh
Just
my
kidding.
gosh.
Yeah. So
I mean, you're more than welcome.
No,
so.
I know.
Kelly's here too. But.
Anyway, so lemonade wine, you make lemonade, you ferment it.
And then this was something I wasn't originally planning on like selling because it's not something that's grown here. And that was kind of the idea, is like, this is as local as it can get. You know, you can come and see the wine. You can see the vines that grow your grapes that's so in the wine you're drinking, which is kind of the idea behind all of it. But I made some of this, and it was like a hot day. I brought some over for some neighbors, and I was like, here, try this. And then they were like, oh, this is really good. When are you planning on selling it? And I'm like, I'm not, because, and I started listing off my excuses. They're like, why not? I'm like, oh, okay. And really, this is one of the reasons why
this has basically saved our finances.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
It's just something that came out of the blue, really, and it's really, because I didn't recognize really some of the overhead that we'd be having in the form of the insurance.
Sure.
I mean, I knew about the licenses and things, but I mean, we probably have about $3,000 worth of overhead a year that we've got to cover. And and even though in individual bottle of wine, I always like to tell people, like, this is my trivia. What do you think out of this that you're looking at? What do you think costs the most?
The bottle and the cork.
Bottle.
So the bottle's $1. What do you think costs the second most?
Cork.
The label.
No. Try again. Think harder.
And so I make wine as well. For us, it's the bottle and then the cork.
Yeah.
Starts
well,
with,
think
starts
not
with a T.
a physical thing.
Time.
Taxes.
Oh,
taxes.
taxes.
I don't sell wine, so I don't understand
the second most expensive component in this wine is the taxes.
Wow.
Yep.
Really?
So, followed by the label, the cork, and the wine.
Explain that. So you sell this bottle of wine for what? $15?
These are $10.
$10? Okay.
And the raspberry wine is $12, and then our grape wines are more in like the 15 to 25 range.
Great.
Okay.
So then you're saying that there's a 10% tax? No,
it's not a percentage. It's actually a straight excise tax per gallon.
Okay.
And in Illinois and on the federal level. So one of those things that happens in legislation that a lot of people don't pay attention to. So you know that the big Trump tax cut things that came by?
Yeah.
Tucked in the corner of that was a new bill that decreased the taxes for micro wineries and breweries and dropped the federal tax rate from $1.13 a gallon down to 7 cents a gallon. So it's like a 94% tax cut, which is great. And it's only for like low volume people.
Yeah.
So like the first 5,000 gallons are the 7 cents, and then everything above that's more, basically.
Oh, got it. Okay.
But that's great for people like us who are looking to start out. Like, that really took a chunk out of the overhead. Now, the Illinois state license, they're currently talking the excise tax. They're currently talking about doubling it because, again, our state is broke and silly.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But the still, it's interesting that, like, when I tell people, I'm like, taxes, you're drinking taxes right now, like, part of what you're paying. So, like, but we have to sell essentially like 350 of these before we make a profit.
Wow.
And that's a lot of sales to do.
So speaking of kids,
you have to pick up yours
in probably 10 to 15 minutes.
Great.
But one of us can do that and we can jump back in.
Totally.
But
I would love to hear more about marketing. Let's just jump back into that really
absolutely.
quick, and then we can talk taxes more, because that's although it seems boring,
No,
it's
that's
actually
okay.
very interesting to me.
So as far as the marketing goes, I think I've honestly, part of it is just I just feel very fortunate to be in an area where people are already really interested in our product. Like the wine, it almost kind of sells itself. And that's not to say like I don't do anything with the marketing, but really it's almost all word of mouth and social media.
Wow.
And I think also we don't really have competition here. Yeah, like we're the only winery and vineyard in Warrenville.
Not just in Warrenville, in DuPage County.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So
there are other wineries and other vineyards, my understanding is, but nobody who does both on the same site. So
and I don't want to use that as an excuse not to do a good job with marketing, but I really but I think it wouldn't be honest not to acknowledge that.
Of course.
That's been a huge part of it. But I've been learning a lot about like what kind of, you know how like on your Facebook page, you can look at the, what do you call it?
Insights.
Analytics.
The insights. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's been super useful to see like, okay, what kind of content really generates a response? So if we're just talking about our products and how you can get them, it's not all that interesting, right? But I think so. I heard this on another podcast. So Christy Wright, she does she's like a Ramsey personality, I think. I don't know if she works for him or what, but she has a podcast called The Business Boutique, and it's really it's geared towards women in business, doing small businesses. And so something that she said on her podcast was for every do you remember how it was worded?
For every ask.
Yes, for every ask, you should put out at least 3 pieces of content.
The jab, sell or something
kind
like
of,
that.
Exactly.
Not just like jab, but just like, here's something for you that's exciting for you.
And
just
we're not
just
asking
creating value,
for anything in return.
Really. So,
yeah,
so for
exactly.
example,
so you can put a face behind, okay, who are the faces behind the small business and why do
they do it?
Yeah.
Right.
The number,
So,
the top liked photos on our personal, well, not on our personal, but on our wedding Instagram, on our business family Instagram, and on Liveside Media are photos of our family. Doesn't matter how many dope wedding photos I take. It will always be our family.
We had some professional photos done because we hadn't done one of the for the business specifically.
Yes.
We've done like family photos in the vineyard. So we wanted to get some professional headshots and stuff. We did that last week, and through like brought our kids out at the very end to do some photos with us. We have gotten so much activity from that, like almost as much. So the single post that got the most responses and the most reach was when we announced that our lemonade wine was for sale at the local grocery store.
Cool.
So this was the second beyond that. And that was like, everyone loved just seeing us and the pictures of our family. Yeah. And
also just like we provide not only do we provide wine, we also provide like winemaking content.
Yeah. We did a workshop at the library last week, or a presentation about cold climate viticulture. And so I think things like that, like people are really interested because there aren't a lot of wineries and vineyards in this area. And
now I have like people in town being like my Concord grapes just aren't producing. What can I do? I'm like, I happen to be an expert now.
I think that's so significant though, because anyone can make a product. And nowadays, like with the internet and, being able to like, you can literally go online and read the law and you don't have to go down to City Hall. No. It's like anyone has access to do it. And so what's actually going to set you apart is like who you are. And I think that's like huge. And I think that's why things like the family photos are the most enticing for people because they're like, oh, it's not just this bottle.
Right.
Like the people behind the bottle and the people who are putting the love and the care into creating this is what's important.
Yeah, and it's really cool. Helped connect us into the community as well. And that's one of the things that I decided, especially Warrenville being a smaller town, like I'm gonna really just get connected into the town. I'm a member at the local VFW. So like down there, I'm talking to the guys and the other people, and then who are involved in those community events. So I'm kind of like, and my brother's he works at the Warrenville Firehouse too. So like our family is really well connected into the town now. And so and my mom teaches piano and everything like that. So there's a lot of things that we just kind of do as a bigger family, in town. And so, that's been part of the marketing success too, with regards to the word of mouth, is just people know, like it's silly, but the LaForge name is now something that, like, I joke with my father that he started another dynasty. That there are 4 other families in Warrenville that just about everybody's connected to in some way or another.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, our house will soon rival theirs, like Game of Thrones style. But it's one of those things that's cool is that some of my mom's piano students will be like, so I heard something about LaForge wine. Do you know anything about that? And she's like, well, that's my son.
Oh my gosh.
So
that's awesome.
So there's connections through there too in other community aspects that we're involved in. So it's like, I'd say like if you're a small business owner and you're looking to start something and you want to get involved and you're like, okay, I've got my location set, then just get involved with whatever it is the community is doing. And if you're excited about that community, then that community is going to be excited about you. And that's really what it's been with Warrenville as a town. And I like doing this has really made me love the town more than I did even when we decided to move here. Because it was like, because there's just so many people who are excited about the town and having that connection with their neighbors and everything. And so that was something that I've really enjoyed, and that's been part of the marketing aspect too. And that if somebody comes by and they buy just one bottle, they're still a part of that community experience that our business brings to it. So
very cool.
So do you guys want to hear some horror stories? No.
The horror stories.
Yeah. I can go into a little bit about the how are we on time right now? Do we know?
No clue.
I mean, we are not on a timeline.
So we could split this to 2 episodes.
2 episodes.
So this is a bald-faced hornet. You see how it's white?
Yeah.
Right there.
That's crazy.
Their stingers hurt a little more, but they're a little bit more docile from what I understand.
I was like, it's not attacking you.
No. They're actually...
I'm like very afraid of bees.
You like whipped one at her earlier.
I was like,
oh, you do not know what you just did.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I don't know why. So as a kid, it really stems from that. As a kid, I was like running through this maze. It was fall. And my friend felt something on her head and she grabbed it. It was a ladybug. And she was like, oh my gosh, I got a ladybug. And then I felt something in my head and it was a wasp. I didn't know it. So I grabbed it and it stung me in the hand. And then I was stuck in the maze. I was probably like 7 or 8.
Oh,
and
my
so
gosh.
I'm like screaming through the maze, trying to get out, trying to find my mom,
That's brutal.
freaking out. And so, I mean, that's where it stems
That's why.
from.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah.
So tell me, so you make raspberry wine,
That's right.
the red wine, different kinds.
Okay,
from the
wait,
different...
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What's the difference between a raspberry and a black raspberry?
So raspberries, raspberries are red, and black raspberries
So
are
that's
black.
literally a different...
So there
And
are
that's
a
different than a
kind.
blackberry.
So, and there are
Right.
blackberries, and they're
Yeah.
different. So
Okay, because I was like, I think they're different, but I wasn't sure.
Black
Okay.
raspberries, the reason why you can't buy them in stores typically is because their skins are not as firm as red raspberries, and so they don't transport very well.
Got it.
They're slightly sweeter. They're higher, and I believe, what's the thing that's supposedly in fish that you're supposed to eat?
Mercury?
Omega-3.
Omega-3. No, that's fatty acids. There's some kind of special antioxidants. It's higher in antioxidants than red raspberries.
Okay.
So,
So it's healthy wine.
They're supposedly better for you. Yeah, of course.
Healthy wine. Yeah.
So they're supposedly
That's
like
why I sold out.
better for you. And when we first did this, one of the things we did was like, okay, when I discovered the black raspberries, I'm like, oh my goodness, these things are fantastic. We needed and I realized as my expenses were going up and as I'm establishing things, I'm like, we need to make money. So one of the things you can do without really any kind of permits or overhead is you can sell your own produce up to a certain amount. And so we sold our black raspberries. We'd already started our Facebook page, kind of talking about that content going out there and letting people know here's who we are, and just kind of getting before we even applied for the city process where we'd be at a public hearing.
Right.
So it wasn't just like we dropped in out of nowhere. We'd already been talking to the community via the internet and also just our neighbors for about 2 years before we even started that process.
Yeah.
And one of those things was we sold our black raspberries. So we'd go
Interesting.
through and we went through and we were just harvesting them and selling them fresh to people. And we were selling them for around, it's like, I think it's like $6 a pint or something like that. So it ended up being around $12 a pound, which is typical.
I'm good.
Typical for black raspberries. And I was surprised that so many people were like, oh, black raspberries are my favorite. You just
Wow.
can't ever buy them anywhere.
I've
and so
never
we
seen
had
them.
we had a unique product.
Yeah.
And so we got a lot of people that just came out even from Wheaton and Aurora really to
Wow.
come and buy them. So it was really cool. And that was interesting because it feels you're like getting it $6 at a time, selling them a pint.
Yeah.
And then at the end of that year when we were doing that, we were like, we just made $300. Like, that's
Yeah.
great because we went over our budget by $300 this year.
Oh, wow.
So
That's so good.
so, and the other thing, going back to cash flowing, if I had to give a piece of advice on that, if you're going to cash flow your business and you're going to set up a budget, like I tracked the finances meticulously. Every transaction goes into Excel, into a spreadsheet that I have and I track. It is so important to split the business and family finances as soon as possible, to the point of we take the business money, we opened a separate account for it. And that was something that as soon as we did that, it's like, because there are a lot of things that just got muddied in the water where like, and when I first started out, I'd be like at the hardware store and be like, okay, I'm going to grab this. And I need this too for the vineyard. And I just grab it, throw it in there. And I'm spending personal money on business expenses that we're not really budgeting in a personal budget.
And you don't realize how much you do that.
And you don't realize how much it adds up. And it's really easy starting out being like, oh, I've got $10,000. I can just buy whatever I want.
Totally.
And then it evaporates so quick. So like, guard every single dollar. Like every single dollar that comes through, especially if you're borrowing money and you've sourced out some capital, you got to guard and be really defensive with every dollar. Like, do I really need to spend this, or can I just do something extra? Like, do I really need to hire somebody to do this, or can I just do this myself this time? And then when I'm in the black, then I can decide, okay, well, this is a job I don't really want to do, so I'm going to pay somebody. So like next year, since we're profitable now, I'll probably pick up a teenager to come do some of the yard work, or hire somebody to do some of the childcare from time to time. Just because we know we can afford it. But up until this point, we've been doing everything ourselves because the budget has been so tight. And so that's a really, really important aspect. I know we're jumping back and forth.
No,
topics,
I love it. And I think that's so important because if you can't, I think you can so easily, especially if you have, a supplemental income or another job or whatever, you can so easily go like, oh yeah, it's working. But you're just like,
you can fool yourself into
cash.
You can fool yourself into spending more money than you have for something.
And you're like, oh, well, we came out in the end fine. We paid our 401k. We did all these things, but actually you spent way more money than you needed to, or you actually didn't actually turn a profit at all, but it feels like it because you didn't separate your personal and business finances.
So I think that's something that if I had to go back and do that again, that's something I would have done from the start rather than waiting a year and a half into the process.
Sure.
I would have done it as soon as as soon as feasibly possible, because it would have really cleaned up a lot of things. Plus, also, if I miss a day keeping the books, I can just go back to the bank account and see the transaction and know this is it. So, and then that keeps me checking the bank regularly, which is why I recently discovered that our business bank account had purchased about $200 worth of shoes in Delaware, and then had purchased a background check in the state of New York. And so that's when I called the bank and said, somebody has my number. Please cancel the card.
Wow.
Oh, gosh. So tell me about your market research and how you decide what type of stuff to make and what you think will sell well and why you think that. So
the market research so I guess when I made my business plan, this is when I made my business plan. This was a pretty bold assumption that I made when I did this plan. I did the plan assuming I would sell out 100% of my product, at least initially. That I would make something and it would all go from wine to cash. And that is not an assumption that most business owners can make. But I also recognize that DuPage County has nearly 1 million people in it, and that we are the only winery and vineyard in DuPage County. And that all I need to do is sell one bottle to 1/10 of 1% of the population of DuPage County a year.
1/10 of a percent.
1/10 of a percent of I think that was the deal. Then I'm sold out. Basically, like so if somebody comes by and buys a case, they've done the purchasing of more than anybody. So like that, or really even just the population of Warrenville. I just need to sell one bottle to, or one bottle a year to 20% of the population of Warrenville, and I'm sold out. So that was one of the bigger components of this whole process. Just thinking that there is probably a market, at least based on sheer numbers, for the low volume that we have. Now, as our volume increases, is that going to hold true? Since we're turning a profit off of the low volume we have right now, even if it doesn't hold true, I'm still going to be okay. So that was part of the modeling that goes into it. But the other research was like going into like what kind of wine do consumers prefer. So we're limited on what we produce based on the variety of grapes. So one of the important things that Jeff Cox talks about in the book From Vines to Wines is the importance of the grape itself. That is the single most important component of the wine, in that it is better to produce a good quality grape in the region that it can be grown rather than a poor quality grape of something that you might prefer. Example being, We grow Petite Pearl, which is not a University of Minnesota. It's a Tom Poacher private hybridized red grape, and that is designed to grow in cold climates. And so that's why we've been mentioning cold climate viticulture. So the vines and grapevines that we have are all bred specifically to survive, and they're crossbred with plant material, a type of grapevine called Vitis riparia, or the riverbank grape, which naturally grows in this area. It just doesn't produce a good grape for making wines. What they did is they crossbred it because it's really hardy. It can survive in the really difficult winters and short summers that we have relative to other wine growing regions in the world. And that allows it to grow here. And so in the book, he says, you can grow a mediocre Merlot, or you can grow a good, or in our case, we could grow a mediocre Merlot, or we could grow a good Petite Pearl. And it's better 10 times out of 10 to grow that grape that will grow well in your area than to pick the variety. Like, case in point, we have one of our rows here that I just got a kind of a wild hair up my butt and decided I was going to grow Riesling because it's rated for zone 6. We're in zone 5 here, and that means it's right on the border. So maybe, just maybe, I'll be every other now and then I'll be able to get grapes from it, and then I could have a Riesling that was grown here. Boy, did Mother Nature prove me wrong. Now, fortunately, I didn't invest any big money on this. When I was originally buying the grapes, I was planning on buying about 40, and then I discovered if I bought more than 50, not only did the price go down per vine that I bought, it went down so much that it was cheaper for me to buy 15 vines and throw them away than it was for me to buy 40. So I just bought 15 Riesling vines, figuring, okay, I'll just throw these in the ground. And if they work, great. If they don't, I've learned my lesson, because like my sister-in-law loves Riesling, and I know Riesling's a really popular variety. And I was like, if I can get that to grow here, I know I could use that even just for a marketing standpoint. If we have a small crop, I could be like, hey, we've got this, and it'll get people's eyes on the products. And then even if that's not available, there'll be something else that they're interested in.
Totally.
Yeah, Mother Nature is a cruel mistress. The vines have been ravaged by our winters, destroyed by our bugs, and sickened by our funguses that grow here, that happen in Illinois, that don't happen in other wine growing regions of the world. And so much so that I'm planning on ripping them up and removing them. So with regards to market research, as far as grape varieties, I'm limited to what will grow. Now, as far as what I chose, a lot of the research that I did was in reading these and talking to other commercial growers, and we also visited wineries in Minnesota where these grapes are bred at the University of Minnesota. And all the wineries that they have around there, and I was talking to people, and it was always fun. I'd walk in, and the tasting staff would come up and be like, "Oh, what would you like to try today?" I would like look down and be like, "Okay, that's shipped in. Okay, now that's a hybrid. That's grown local. That's okay." I'm like, "All right, I'll take your Frontenac Gris, the La Crescent, and the I see you have something else." I'd be like, "Yeah, Frontenac Blanc, I'll take that." And so they'll be like, "Okay," and then they'd like pour them and be like taste it, be like, "Okay, do you know what the bricks was brought in? It was brought in this," and they're like, "Oh, it was this," and I'm like, "Okay, you know what the TA was? How mature was the vine? Like, do you know what the spacing is on the vines?" like it starts rattling it off, and then the person would be like, "Let me go get," and then insert name of person here, and then usually it was the owner who would come up, and they'd be like, "Oh, you want to do this?" And then it's so fun with the cold climate viticulture. It's almost like its own community. My understanding is you go out west and you could never talk to the head winemaker. He's in California or something, and he's like, "Oh,
hush hush,
hybrids. I don't drink filth," that kind of thing. Whereas because it is difficult to grow grapes in this kind of climate, it's like we're all just like misery loves company kind of thing. And so I'd have the owner would come up and be like, "Oh, let me," I was like, "Come show me, come to the barrel room." We get the behind the scenes tour, the industry discount. It's always so fun. First time it happened, here's we need to go. I'm like, "You don't understand. I'm taking notes." I have my notebook with me and I'm writing down all these things.
Totally.
Their numbers, the yeast they use, the different stuff, and the challenges that they've dealt with, and they love. And it's just anybody's in this industry, we like talking about it. If you listen, who knows how many hours we're into this podcast at this point. This is just what I like to do. It's one of the things. And so it's nerdy aspect of it. And so it's happened consistently. Every single winery I've gone to, I always start with the tasting staff, and then I
wind up with the owner.
And it's not like I'm a sommelier where I'm like, oh, please don't bring me this filth. Bring me the fine wines. I want the top shelf stuff that you hide from everyone. No, it's always like, I'm like, what are you selling to people? And then I talk. I'm like, what sells? Like, what goes from the shelf into the customers' bags? And that was one of the things that I discovered, is that they were like, pretty much consistently, they were like, sweet sells 10-1 over dry.
Wow.
Which is a surprise to me, because I love dry wines. That's what I'm into. And that's one of the things when we chose Petite Pearl as a variety, was that this is going to be our house dry red, like a good medium bodied red that people just can come and throw a steak on the grill and drink this wine, and it's going to be great.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why we originally chose Frontenac as a variety before I was even aware of Petite Pearl. Even though Frontenac has its challenges with regards to its acidity, I knew it could make a dry red. It was the first red grape that really came out. It came out in 1996. That actually was known for, is like, this has the ability to make a dry red, and you guys got to try it. Like, it's got distinct characteristics, distinct flavors, and things that I actually now enjoy, especially as I went through the tasting different hybrid wines, the process. That to where, like, if I go into a store, and if I ever saw like someone had a Marquette, which is another University of Minnesota variety, if they had a Marquette on the shelf, I'd be like, and I'm gonna take that, even though it's sitting right next to the Paso Robles Merlot. I'm gonna take that Marquette, because like that's what I'm now interested in, because I'm like, oh, I know that was grown close to home. So it was just something that part of this research. So part of the research was really fun. We were going to wineries and doing wine tastings.
Sounds terrible.
And talking to other people where this was their passion. And so that's something like you can apply it even on a broader business basis. Like if you're interested in, like, I want to go do, craft carpentry or something like that, go find people who do it. I guarantee part of the reason why they're doing it is they love doing it, and then go spend some time with them and talk to them about their products and what sells and what moves. And not once did I ever run to somebody like, that's an industry secret, I can't tell you that. Everyone was always so open about, what they do and how they got to where they did, and the mistakes they made. I mean, I feel like I made 100 mistakes in this whole process, and I've lost crops, and all of it has been a learning experience that I'd happily pass on to somebody else, and just changing ideas with different growers and winemakers as well, and different hobbyists. So, the research was part of the research. That part of the research was really, really fun. The red tape, not so much, but
if you wanted, could you import grapes from other places and sell it, or?
Yes. So the license that we have is a Illinois limited wine manufacturer's license. This is one of the cheaper wine licenses, but it restricts us to the point where we're not allowed to do events. And we also cannot buy grapes from outside the state of Illinois, as long as, Illinois produce must make up at least 60% of our production. So technically, this does not fit within license, but the black raspberry does, and all of our
everything else does besides that, basically.
Now, that actually doesn't kick in until you've been in business for at least 5 years.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry, can you tell them a little research?
It sounds like you've done a little bit of research on this, like almost like you're considering taking the plunge.
Maybe. We'll see.
So the limited wine manufacturer license is good as far as that goes. We've considered going to the first class.
With that, could you then import, or is it still?
Well, so we could import from anywhere.
As a first class.
As a first class, you don't even need any. There's no restrictions. Sure. Even under the limited wine manufacturers, we could still import.
Up to 40%. After 5 years, first couple of years, it's 100%.
It's 100%, then 80%, then 60, then 40. Exactly. Like it steps in very slowly, to the point where it's almost like a pointless deal, where you could be like, all right, well, now that I'm running,
right,
I'm just going to upgrade my license.
And the license doesn't cost that much more, to be honest. It's like a $300 license to $900 license. At that point, when you're in business for a few years, it's really nothing when you have everything else established already.
But that's the trap. $300 to $900 is still a lot of money.
Well, depends on how much you're making. To be honest.
It's true. Yeah. And also how much return you're going to get on that difference.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So the big difference I see
Exactly.
for upgrading our license is the ability for us to do events. There are a lot of events in town where people have asked us, can you come and bring your wine and pour your wine? And that essentially
okay.
doubles what we can make on a bottle of
Totally.
wine because we're doing glass service.
Well, you could make that back, it seems like, in 2 nights, the $600 extra.
Right. We could do that. And that's
'Cause-
something that we've, now that we've been at it for over a year at this point, where that was one of the considerations. At this point, we're just kind of looking, we're going to work around, we're going to partner with other people who hold retail licenses. Because, right now we're working on our house and there's a lot of things we got
Understood.
going on where we're like, do we really want to take this step into the event scene, which is really one of the things that we're interested in doing.
But it would also be a lot of footwork.
Yeah, there'd be a lot more footwork
time.
and a lot more time.
Yep.
So we are able to do events in a different capacity. Like one of the things that we've actually thought of, like service as a product is
Yep.
experiences as products. A lot of people in our
Absolutely.
generation are really into experiences, especially as the grapes mature. If we have somebody who's like, they're doing a wedding, like they just got engaged and they're like, we want to do a custom wine for our wedding.
Yep.
People can come out, see their grapes, pick their grapes, step on their grapes, have a photographer
Step on their
come
grapes. Do you still
Do
step
it.
on your grapes?
out. For the Frontenac that you just consumed, this was foot pressed.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
So now we
This
have
Makes
a,
me
year-
so happy.
That's
This year we
hysterical.
are borrowing
Yeah.
a crusher destemmer because we have a lot more grapes this year, and it's something we're hoping to buy. But yeah, there was nothing
You
like
get the
the
natural
experience
yeast from the
of-
toes, you know?
Oh my
No,
gosh.
No.
we sanitized everything just for our customers. We sanitized it. It was all clean.
Sure.
But literally, that's how wine's been made for 2,000 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we
Why fix it if it's not broke?
it's not broken. But yeah,
That's amazing.
So, but basically, we have that as an opportunity, and that's something we plan on. We actually have it on our frequent asked questions, like, do you do like special batches? And it's like, talk to us. We haven't gotten to that point yet because our vines quite aren't mature. But like, if next year, if someone were to come out and be like, hey, we want to have the winemaking experience where we come out and we do the steps, and and get to. And then have that wine, let's say, at the head table or something like that at
Right.
their wedding, and they can show those pictures. And I think that's something that we can also offer. That you don't get to go out to that winery out in California, even if we order in grapes. That's
Right.
not
Right.
something that you really have the opportunity to do.
understood.
That's so fun.
So like, there's more that we can kind of do from a standpoint that doesn't even require us to change our license.
Yeah.
And so we're I don't know, we're open to the idea. For that, I was talking about how we're potentially thinking about upgrading the license for the sake of being able to do events and stuff. But for now, it's just like we've got so much going on. It's like we're in the black. Let's pull in
That's
this
great.
year's harvest. Let's take a deep breath,
yes.
and then revise the business plan at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, because right now our business reflects our stage of life, just I think as it would in any small business. So you do what you have the capacity for and what you can, this is what we can manage right now.
Yeah.
And then we're open to opportunities down the road too. I think that I'm excited for what those possibilities are. So.
Totally. So going back a little bit to, you were talking to people and they said that, sweeter wines sell.
Mhm.
I've heard from both of you that like the, dry reds, that's your favorite.
Mhm.
Was that a little bit of a bummer, or were you like, you know what, it is what it is. We need to turn a profit. Let's just turn a profit so we can do what we actually want to do. Or were you like, we're going to make lemonade
So
wine.
this was
Yeah.
this was for me. This was a kind of like, whenever I buy wine, like I'm buying a dry red off the shelf. That's just what I do. This was kind of fun because part of that research process it's like, okay, because sweet wines kind of dominate the market, I need to learn about sweet wines.
And dominate this market.
Yeah.
This market
yeah,
specifically.
Specifically
That's
in
a
Illinois,
distinction.
Warrenville.
Yeah.
In part, that's a virtue of the fact that local wines in general, the dry reds that have come out of Illinois, have always been viewed as somewhat mediocre, just as a
Sure.
reason. Whereas the sweet wines have generally been viewed positively. So just as a wine growing region, it doesn't have the reputation for being able to do good dry reds.
Got it.
But part of that is because the grapes didn't exist until now to be able to do that. So one of the marketing decisions that I've made is a lot of wineries in this area, if you go and you visit them, you'll notice they'll have a red, and it'll be like, this is our horseback red, or our, red pony red, or something like that. And it'll have a fanciful name. And I felt like they're kind of, I term it this, and maybe this is somebody will take issue with this, but I consider it like hiding your hybrids. It's like you don't want people to know that it's a hybrid, so you're kind of hiding the fact that it's in there. And so you can tell somebody, oh yeah, this is locally grown, but we're not going to put Marquette or Frontenac on the label because we know that doesn't have the draw as some kind of fanciful name. And so part of my idea was like, I want to educate my customers and have them know that if you buy a Petit Pearl or a Marquette, you know that you bought something that was grown probably in this region, just by virtue of the grape that's on it. And teaching them like, this is what a good Marquette tastes like. Because what you just had was, the Frontenac, there's probably a very unique taste for you.
Totally.
Because it is something
it's not
different.
That like full-bodied, like Merlot type taste that a lot of people are used to.
So
are you guys on the cutting edge of like this new hybrid? I heard you say like we got the first of, I forget what it was.
It's the Itasca.
Yeah. So are you guys like kind of the forerunners?
We're not like super cutting edge because Tom Plocher hasn't been calling us and asking us if he wants to do a test planning on our plant. Although if he were, I'd be like, please Tom, come, I love you.
We'll tag him.
But our Petit Pearl, right? But our Petit Pearl vines, those weren't even developed until 2015.
Well, they were developed before. So
they were.
This is how you get on the cutting edge is he has test plots all over the country.
Yeah.
And so there are people who have been making wine out of some of his grapes that aren't released yet. But as soon as a grape is released to the public,
it was released in 2015. We bought
Itasca, which was as a University of Minnesota white. We bought that as soon as it was made available to the public. We bought some vines. The exciting thing about Itasca as a variety is because it doesn't have a reputation, there's no limits on what we're going to do with it as far as customers go. So we can kind of set customers' expectations.
Cool.
We could have it so that we can make a dry white out of it. And if that's something that it can do and do really well, then that will be the ones essentially defining what that variety is.
Wow. Yeah, that's fun. That's so fun.
And kind
that's
of
crazy.
like, and kind of going to your question on the side of like, were we disappointed? I think I would be if no one was interested in dry red wines, but there are enough people who are that like there's a reason to make it. And that's my personal taste, but I am all for trying the sweeter wines too and whites. So I think if no one wanted them, like if no one was interested, I'd be sad. But
that's part
this
of it
just gives us the opportunity to branch out and have kind of a well-rounded as we kind of get more established, have a well-rounded
portfolio
list of choices. Yeah, basically.
So, and the part of what's most exciting about for me is not being like, oh, you really like, you drank my dry red and that makes me happy. It's like having customers excited about my product. Yep. I don't care what I made. Yep. You liked my product and that's
enough.
That's enough.
Yeah. That's so good.
Yeah. Why would you try and sell somebody something that they don't like?
Absolutely.
So, and that's part of the reason why is like, I knew when I went into this, even before I did the market research on seeing what was, what moved, what sold, was that I knew I'd be making some type of sweet wine just for the fact that I knew there was a market for it. I just didn't know it was as big as, as big as it is, really.
Sure.
And that's great though. There's dollar bills in there. I mean, if it weren't for the fact that people like sweet wine, we wouldn't be moving this lemonade like we have been. Yeah. So,
how did you get your wine into a store?
That was my next question.
It was my next question.
Whoa.
Well,
you guys must be married or something.
You guys are so married.
That was know each other.
That was coincidence more than anything.
You say coincidence, but there's an aspect.
There's a story.
There's an aspect of business where it's like we end up putting ourselves in the right place at the right time.
Well,
sure.
It's true. So the grocery stores, and I'll definitely shout them out. It's Family Foods over in Warrenville, otherwise known as Frank's for anybody who's lived in Warrenville for a really long time. Because that's
what it used to be called before.
It very recently it changed ownership, so there's new owners of it, and I was just in there, and the owner Nick, I met him, and I was talking to him for a little bit, and I was like, I own the local winery in town. Do you want some of my product on your shelves. And he's like, we're really excited to get in touch with anybody who's a local producer, because we're the local grocery store and we want to sell the local products.
Love it.
And he is, and this funny thing was, my mother had met him before I did, and she was like, you need to meet the owner of Family Foods. And she's like, I bet you can make a deal with him. He seems like a handshake guy, is what she said. Like the kind of guy where you make a deal, not by like signing papers and having the lawyers there or anything like that, but you make the deal by, you sit down, you get to know each other, and then you shake hands and you made a deal. And that was literally how it went. Like,
that's awesome.
Like, I went in, I said, okay, here's what I want and the other thing is I did a little research on what it's like to wholesale, because I'd never done wholesaling and I didn't know what to expect. We weren't
sure if that was even an option for us because of we're so small.
Because I make more money when we sell it here than if we wholesale. Yeah. Because we gotta, and that's the thing is, somebody, you gotta cut out the middleman, that kind of thing. It's like, over at Family Foods, they do work for us. He puts it on the shelves. He's got foot traffic. He's got his own set of customers that come by, that he's given us the exposure. Like, I want to pay him for the work that he's doing over there. So, but I also need to make money on my product. So like, that's kind of the whole thing of a wholesale relationship, is making that connection and then making a deal that's good for both of you. Yeah. And that's what we ended up with, is like, I was like, you put it on your shelves, and these are some of the terms that I want, as far as like, things that you need to think about if you're ever going to wholesale any of your products, is whether or not you're going to sell in credit, in terms of delivery. So if they call for restock, how fast are you going to be able to turn around on inventory, amount of inventory, minimum inventory purchases, certain things that you got to think about. All things that I had kind of already had in my head, like, these are the terms that I'm going to offer him, and then these are and hopefully he'll accept, and hopefully it'll be good for both of us. And it's been great. Like, the wine's been flying off the shelf over there. And Charis likes that, because then she doesn't have to make the pickups.
Well, it's kind of, it's like buying more time to do the other things that we need to do.
So, since we had the production to be able to do it. Now, for our Frontenac, our really limited releases, we weren't able to put any shelf. But even for the raspberry wine, where I knew like it was going to sell, I was like, I still want people to be able to know that, okay, they can get some of our stuff at his store. So I promised them, I'm like,
it was a very, very, very limited stock.
Yeah. And so I promised him, I'm like, I'm going to get you at least 2 cases of this. And, I'm going to advise you, because part of the benefit for him of having us there is that they can get some foot traffic. Yeah. That's really important for retail, grocery store especially, is, they need people coming in the door. And so like, how do you get people in the door? You got to have, that's why they have loss leaders and all kinds of things like that they operate with. But you can also have unique products, and that gets people in the door. And I told him, like, you are going to be it. You're going to be the only guy in town who's selling this. And that's got to have, and so part of, like sales on my own standpoint, but it's also sales on his standpoint, because he knows I can use this and I can get people in my door. And so it was just I was just in the store. I was there picking up, what was I? Like hamburgers or something. Yeah. And I ran into the owner and we talked, and he said, come meet me. And we had a little meeting. It was a 30-minute meeting. We shook hands. I brought a case of wine.
And it works so well because it's also a local business. So it's like 2 local businesses partnering together. It wouldn't work at like Walmart or a bigger,
Yeah. Because if we're like, we're available at Walmart now. What's that? Like, so I think if you're going to decide, and if you're going to sell at a retailer or have somebody else selling your product for you, I think it's important to see if they've got a similar vision, at least as far as, customer base that you have. I think that's something that, like, because I don't think we wouldn't sell at Target or Walgreens or anything like that. I don't think that would be something that I'd be interested in doing. But selling at if there's a local wine tasting place that would open up or something like that, we'd do that. But like at the local grocery store that's owned by these 2 guys that I walk in there. Every time I walk in there, I see one of them. Like I see Nick or Rob, and I like say hi. Like that's important to me, and that's important to a lot of people in this community. To be able to know that I can walk into my grocery store and I can talk with the owner about something, and rather than like Target, where it's like, this is some French executive somewhere who's got the reins on this kind of thing. So even though I'm not saying like big corporations don't have people who are obviously involved in the community, but
buying wine off the shelf at Target, like there's I do it. There's nothing wrong with it. Yeah. But just for the kind of our
your niche
setup, and exactly. It just works out a lot better logistically, and like Kevin said, vision wise. We just have a bit of a different market, and this lends itself to it better. So
this might be a difficult question, but do you think your winery and your concept would work if you were in like big city Chicago or, you know, I mean, I just keep hearing you say like Warrenville, small community, local.
We are very Warrenville.
Very, I mean, it's so focused.
Right.
Would it work in a bigger city?
I think it can.
I'm not sure if our current model would, but I think
obviously you can't buy an acre in Chicago, but
right. It'd be real expensive.
Yeah, you'd probably have to outsource. But I think it's doable. I think that we would look very different. And there would be a really cool like community niche that we would probably find there too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be doable, but it just would look different.
I think
I don't know that we could take what we have here and stick it in Chicago and have it be
there's two issues there's two things that come to mind. I think there would be really exciting aspect of that is because even though Chicago is a big city, it is broken up into smaller neighborhoods. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's where you'd take your focus and be like, we're the Lincoln Park winery where you can, this is what we're looking for. The issue, of course, is if you did try to transplant us to Chicago, is you drown in red tape there. Because you basically, from talking to Charis's dad, who helped do a construction project in Chicago, the aldermen are so absurdly corrupt. Like it's that to get yourself off the ground, you'd have to really get in with them and promise to support them the next election or something. Like I don't know. It's just what was it your dad was saying? Like, oh yeah, he was like, it was when he was going to do a primary, because in Illinois has open primaries. And you go and you can pick up a Democrat ticket or a Republican ticket. And
I remember.
And he was walking in, and then the city alderman, who was very, very Democrat, was watching for anybody who picked up a Republican ticket. So if you're a business owner and you didn't pick up the Democrat ticket, then you were in trouble. So Charis's father, because he was trying to get a building project approved, picked up the Democrat ticket. Like that's Chicago. Like, so that's the thing of trying to get this business to work in Chicago is you have to, like, to get the approval. These are just the nightmare stories that I hear coming out of there, which is why I wouldn't try to do it in Chicago. And now, not to discourage somebody from doing it, because I still think you can in Chicago. Like, you just have to be very, very savvy and know that and your alderman might not be like that, because they aldermen in Chicago, they run their own little fiefdoms. And they may just be really business friendly and really excited about what you're planning to bring to the community, especially if you get the community behind you and excited about you before you even do that, and tell people, I'm planning on doing this and I really hope I can get approval for it, and this is what I'm planning on doing.
Yeah.
But that's the dark shadow in the back of your head, is red tape. So that would be like, for me, like going to Chicago, I don't think there'd be any trouble duplicating this model in Chicago as far as really getting tucked in with that neighborhood that you're in, or even just your street, and saying like, people on this street, we're excited about this, and or identifying yourself with that, and then getting to know your neighbors. And I certainly think it could work there, even though you have some people, you walk down the sidewalk and they cast their eyes down and they don't want to meet you. But there's always people who like to talk to other people and are excited about what other people are doing in their community. And I think you can find that just about anywhere in the country.
It's kind of an old way of thinking, right? It's like, I'm just picturing like Little House on the Prairie, like barn raisings and like, where community supports community.
Well, that's
community supports local.
That's what this is. I mean, you're looking, these plantings, we had planting day. Mm-hmm. Well, we had friends and family. I mean, we can't afford the labor for it, but we had friends and family come out and help us dig these holes and put in these posts and put in the drain tile and all the things we had to do to get this vineyard established.
Yeah.
And basically we fed them and gave them wine.
We fed them and gave them wine, and that
or
was
beer, whatever they wanted to drink. And, and they were happy to help because they were excited for us to be up and running and to kind of be a part of it. So, yeah. And I think that some of that gets lost, like, because we don't live in that time anymore where
it's very individualistic.
Yeah. It's easy to get isolated in your own life. And I don't have to try for my life to be busy, but I have to be intentional about like carving out time. So I can kind of re-energize and regroup a little bit. But I think that it is kind of cool to see. I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say, but you know what I mean? Like where there's, like it's easy to get isolated, but you have to be intentional about community. And I think this is kind of a way that we can bring community together a little bit more.
Yeah. So I had friends from the rock climbing community and our church, and like people that just came out, and especially like people who work in office jobs, and you're like, you want to come out and dig? And people are like, yes.
Get your hands dirty.
Come get your hands. Or I had like some friends who like work with their hands, like, I need to rest on the weekends. Like, so it was cool. The other part of this too is we had Barney and Christopher. We joked that they're our board members. Not really. They're our board members. Like we've sat down with them, and we've had like 2-hour-long meetings where we're talking about because it's just like we don't want to get trapped in our own little thing. Like we're so excited about this.
Is this going to work? Get into an echo chamber if you're not talking to other people who are they've
been coming alongside us, and we've been talking with them, and we have to schedule another board meeting, but we joke we have our board meetings, and really our board meetings is we sit around and we drink, and then we talk about. I just throw out my ideas. Charis throws out her ideas, and they're like, yeah, or like, no.
I don't know about that.
So like, at the end of the day, like everything that we, every decision that we made has been bounced off of someone other than just us.
Cool. Awesome. Well, if you had one piece of advice to offer to somebody who wants to, start something small, go for their passion project, start a side hustle, what would you say?
I think for me, the answer was even in your question, like, because you said starting small. And I think not that it's a cookie cutter process for anybody starting a small business. It's different for everyone. But I'd say don't be afraid to start small. Because I think it can help break down the process into realistic and easier to swallow kind of steps, if that makes sense. Like, because this way, like if we ever do expand, if we ever get bigger, like we're already up and running and doing what we want to do. And it certainly looks different than if we had, moved out to Galena and bought 150 acres and started that way. But this is the way that we chose to do it. And I'm really glad that we did because there's a lot of fulfillment and reward in even doing this as a side hustle. So I think that's mine. Don't be afraid to start small. And also for me, where fear often can take over, don't let fear stop you from taking the step. Like basically do it scared.
Yeah. So. And I have to echo that second bit that, cast your dream and then set some goals and then go for them. And don't let and this is, I don't know, super cheesy. Don't let no be like, oh, you can't plant a vineyard in the suburbs and get it to work. There's no way that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Go and find. I mean, I hit a lot of dead ends in this whole process of, especially when we were looking on where we were going to situate the winery and licensing.
There's certainly a lot of trial and error. Yeah.
And even with the growing the grapes and the viticulture aspect of it, I mean, I've certainly had the failures. But be willing to accept failure as a part of the process is certainly part of it. Don't risk more than you're willing to risk. Understand your risk include that as part of your model. And then, like I said earlier, split the finances as soon as you can, because then you'll know that one of your goals one of your goals needs to be to make money. So, and for us, that's part of it. Like I did when I mentioned how we cash flowed this, part of the funding was literally a retirement piece. There was a book I read when I was in college about how part of your retirement portfolio should be a skill that you invest in to the form of a small business. So you can always supplement income with something that you enjoy. And that was one of my thought processes. But knowing that I want to be able to make a profit doing this, and how much work am I willing to put in for that level of profit? So setting the goals and then going for them, and when somebody tells you no, ask why not, and then okay, well, what can I do to alleviate that? And you'll find that pretty much everybody along the step of the way wanted to be helpful. Even in the regulatory agencies, nobody that I talked to said, no, you can't do that, and I don't want you to. I'm sure somebody could have, and that would have stopped us, but I would have gone up another road. So persistence is a big key in that. But yeah, start small. Don't take, determine your risk tolerance and take that level of risk. And I think you'll be surprised. I don't know. It's
also say
very
like, fun. Don't put yourself in a box either with how your business should look based on how, because for us, it's like, it looks so different from the typical like vineyard and winery. And
operating by appointment. That was the funny thing, listening to was it Elspeth at the cyclery? And she was like, we
that was
started with $10,000 and by appointment. I'm like, me too. I started with $10,000
that was so
by
encouraging
appointment.
to hear a similar story. And I think that customers also appreciate that when you operate the way that it works best for you and your business, because also you're helping yourself to be in a better position to provide that service to others. So
awesome. Yeah. Well, this is so great. Thank you so much for having us. We love the wine. Thoroughly enjoyed it. You can find the LaForges at their website. I'll link it in the show notes. You can come pick up some wine from them by appointment.
We still have some lemonade wine available. It's almost sold out. So if you want some, put in your order, because it will probably be gone by the end of the month.
Yes. So what do you have available?
We just have the lemonade wine.
Everything else
sold out.
So next year you'll be able to get more vintages of all things, the things Frontenac and lemonade wine and black raspberry wine and all that kind of stuff. But so stay tuned for that. But yeah, thanks so much, guys.
All right, thanks for coming.
It's a pleasure.
Hey, if you liked this or any of our other episodes, jump on your phone or your computer right now and let somebody know. We'd love if you tag us on social media and leave us a review on iTunes. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.